That's what matters more than anything. It's like, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. And I think that,
Hmm.
I think the portal speaks to that directly, and it's even broader to me than psychedelics. It just consciousness, and it's like how you
Mm.
get people to tune in that way, and go deeper. And so I just think psychedelics are sort of a rocket ship for a lot of people into having that shift in perspective that you get to in meditation and stuff. It just takes a lot longer sometimes. And so it's why I really believe in the work we're doing at Portal and what's happening in the psychedelic space beyond us, and why I think it matters now potentially more than ever.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Love, Loss, and Hallucinations, where we take those three words, those three themes, and all their many connotations and see where the conversation takes us. Today's episode have a very interesting human, if I don't say so myself. His name is Brandon Deroche, and he is a truly innovative entrepreneur in the music, social change, and psychedelic arenas. We'll get into what he's doing with his company Propeller, which works with the likes of Lorde and Chappelle Roan and Blake Shelton a little later in the podcast, as well as his nonprofit, the psychedelic-focused company Portal. But for now, welcome to the show, Brandon. So glad you could join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott. Thought it worked out.
Yeah, me too. We had to reschedule a couple times because of busyness and sickness, but we're here now, and he's actually joining us from Costa Rica, which is kind of awesome. Just to think of that wonder of technology to allow us to do this that far away. I guess to get started, I've read that you have said that psychedelics have had a profound impact on your life personally. And always like, whenever possible, to kind of start with a story. So I'm wondering if you can share one story about how that they have had that impact on your life.
Well, I think for me, psychedelics. I was very like as a kid. I was very, just to say this. I was very like, didn't everything was. I was an athlete. I didn't know everything I was going to drink. I didn't ever think I would touch any sort of substance or anything like that. And so I was a late bloomer, so to speak, when it came to any cannabis or anything like that. My friends were all smoking weed in high school. I was very like not jumping on that train, but eventually I did,
Straight edge.
and I really liked it. And so, from there pretty quickly, I immediately just connected with it and just felt like
Mm.
I had gained an perspective that I wouldn't have, I don't know, maybe I would have gone there in different means eventually, but it just really had an impact on me quickly. Looking back on it, I mean, it feels like it was so long ago. That was probably around the year 2000. And so, uh, but it was formative for me in the sense that, like, I was getting ready to go to college and all this stuff in it. And so I think that one of the things it did for me at an early age was have me realize that I want to pursue, like, I want my life to be not just about money. I didn't want to, like, just have a job that was only about money and, like, have a career and hopefully one day I'll retire, make a bunch of money, and then, like, start living my life towards the end of it. I know that's like a extreme way of looking at it, but I really started thinking about certain family members and stuff, and just decided that that was, like, I wanted to live a life that was always pursuing my passions and the things I really
Mm.
believed in.
Wow.
I remember, like, looking back and talking about this stuff with my friends, like lying down in the middle of the night looking at the stars, like on the street in my neighborhood, talking about this stuff. And so I think that yeah, this was all like happening back then, and this was long journey, but I was going to go to school for computer science, and I ended up joining a band my senior year of high school, and then going and pursuing the band life instead of the computer science life. And I think so much of that does stem back to that, like, very first
Mm.
psilocybin experience I had, which was anything but like a guided journey. I mean, it was like a summer night, eating mushrooms with my friends on the deck, when my mom was out of town, and, like, just like, but it, it I don't know if it changed my life, but it, like, directed my life. It steered my life
Yeah.
in a certain direction, and became one of many journeys since then.
Yeah. Well, and you're certainly
Yeah.
not pursuing, at least immediate or likely money if you decide to go the band route versus computer science route. So it was definitely influencing you there. But again, you have since made it work, continuing to follow that passion, as I said, with both Portal and Propeller. And again, we'll get into that. But so did you continue using psychedelics after that into your 20s?
Oh, I definitely did. From there, I was just completely, I don't know, like intrigued by all of it. And, kind of funny, like very funny looking back, but so many things started to make sense. And I mean, my basement ended up being like lined with blacklight posters and all kinds of stuff as a kid. I thought was very fun.
Yeah.
But I ended up like writing my high school, I think it was my junior year term paper on the electric Kool-Aid acid test. And so,
Oh, wow.
I
Hmm.
was got really into sort of that whole culture and um but I always had a respect for it, but still, even though we were pretty like loose and willy-nilly about some of this stuff, it was still I tried always to treat it with respect even at a young age and
Hmm.
did my research before I tried anything and I didn't go off the deep end with any other like drugs or compounds or anything like that. It was really like mushrooms, cannabis and that really continued well into my band days and for several years to follow that.
Well, and it would have been the time before, long before, if you're talking 2000, early 2000s, it's still this sort of mysterious. There's no talk of integration. There's no talk of like ceremonies around it. It's like, let's just jump in and find out what happens. Right. So, that
Yeah.
a brave new world for you for sure.
Right in the world, I'm from central Pennsylvania, and for whatever reason, central Pennsylvania, like especially I don't know, my high school even, like not all the areas
Hmm.
around us, were really into psychedelics, and a lot of
Huh.
our friends, like their older siblings, were going to Fish concerts and Dave Matthews Band, all this stuff at the time. Like it was, Hershey, Pennsylvania is really close, and that was like a mecca for Dave Matthews and these bands and stuff that I didn't realize till I got older. But that influenced, my friends who were their younger siblings a lot and sort of where the path that we took. And so,
Hmm.
um, our high school is relatively affluent, and I think that apparently has an impact on who was doing this kind of stuff sometimes as well. And so I think that there was just a culture that our school had where we were trying a lot of stuff a lot earlier than a lot of other sort of
Hmm.
neighboring high schools and whatnot.
Yeah. Was there a moment, as you're, on this journey, high school, college, afterwards, where it sort of started to shift for you, where it became, you said you already had reverence for it, but like it became more of, the whole kind of what plant medicine is at now, of like the ceremony, the preparation, the intention, integration, all of that.
Well, sort of. I mean, I think that it was a subtle shift because I'm from, again, I'm from York, Pennsylvania. It's like love York, but it's not the most like what you would think of as like a conscious place. It's
Mm.
relatively blue
Hmm.
collar. It's very conservative, and it was just not like a mecca for things like meditation and wellness and spirituality. It just was. So there wasn't like a peer support group or something that was going to steer you into a lot of this. It was really just our friends having these experiences and people around us. And so, um, but I think that what happened for me was just through the experiences pretty naturally, I started like arriving on certain ideas or philosophies
Mm.
or whatever you might call it naturally through the medicine. I like specifically remember one night where like I think I had taken acid and I couldn't sleep and just was lying in my bed. It was going on and on and on and like just felt like I was getting these downloads. And
Mm.
it wasn't until several years later that I had a friend that I'd overheard a conversation that he was having with another friend. And I was basically like, that's exactly like that's what I think, like that's something that like I feel like I've like come to that conclusion. I'm like, where can you like where are you getting this information from? And he said, well, there's this guy called Ramdas, and I think you'd
Ah.
really like him. And this was probably 2006 or so. And so
Hmm.
it wasn't until I heard Ram Dass for the first time that it just was like, these are all the things that I've been feeling, but articulated in a way that I just can't put into words, and just clicked with me. And then that sent me down a whole rabbit hole with people like Ram Dass and Eckhart Tolle and Alan Watts and these different teachers that helped make sense of these experiences that I was having and these thoughts, when again, it just wasn't, that wasn't a normal thing in York, Pennsylvania to, um,
Right.
I mean, at least not that I knew of, not a highly discussed topic. Anyway,
Yeah, and Ram Dass, for those who don't know, he's come up on our podcast, my podcast, a couple other times with people, and he's one of the first people, along with Timothy Leary, back in the '60s. He was at Harvard, and he was a researcher, and they did experiments around psychedelics, and that kind of opened his mind. He went to India, came back. So there's a whole uh, raised consciousness philosophy, and both that involves like some hints of Hinduism and psychedelics and other things that he has a lot of wise words. Let's put it that way.
for sure, a lot of wise words. And I think a lot of what those teachers did was they would say, they would take the different religions and spiritual teachers, and they basically say like, what this person's saying is very similar to what this person's saying, and this person's saying. It was just the words are just signposts, and so how they said it might differ based on their background or ethnicity, or where they're from, but they're all kind of pointing to these same things, and so that
Right.
really helped make a lot of sense of things for me. Is just the language that was being used was sometimes didn't resonate with you or whatever it was, but then once you understood that, like, they're all kind of pointing at these different things that were essentially along the same lines, it kind of opened up the map, I guess you could say, to me, and how I would yeah, comprehend and make sense of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of my favorite quotes of his is, I actually have it written down here, is, your first job is to work on yourself. The greatest thing you can do for another human being is to get your own house in order and find your true spiritual heart. I mean, I just, that kind of just sums it all up. And it sounds, even when you were 16 and you didn't know it, like you're kind of already heading down that path of, doing the work on yourself so you could be of greater good to the rest of us humans out here in whatever way your path led you. Does that sound kind of accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and that quote is like one of my all-time favorite quotes, or he said that many times in different ways, but
Hmm.
basically the greatest action you can do for someone else is to work on yourself and raise your own consciousness. And it's I think that that became such a guiding line for me, I think, and where
Mm.
I've gone in my career and how I've looked at the work that I do. I used to ask artists in interviews, like, what is the greatest action? And sometimes they would say something along those lines, and it would make me very happy. But yeah, I think that, and as I played in the band, and when we were eating mushrooms and trying psychedelics and stuff, with the band who hadn't done that in their high school experiences. And that is really, for that through the psychedelics and then having these touring experiences around the world and stuff, I is really what kind of shaped me wanting to, you know at the time, it was about our own platform as being in a
Hmm.
band. Like, we always said, like, if we were to make it, if we really continue growing in our career, like, we want to use that for something positive. And I was not an activist. I was not even, I wouldn't say I was like a do-gooder. I wasn't thinking about charity or any of that stuff. It was really just about the idea of how you have this opportunity when you have a platform and you could do something good for the world with it. And it was really rooted in these sort of Ram Dass teachings and stuff. It wasn't like,
Mm.
coming from a lot of the places where I think, you know, people that are more activisty think about. It was really almost more spiritual than which is also not a word I used a lot, but wasn't really like traditional activism in that sense. It was more coming from this place of wanting to raise consciousness and up level my own, and then through that
Mm.
hopefully also help other people um up level their own consciousness and do that on more of a grand scale.
Yeah, and so you're sort of beginning to touch on, you're in the band and you're having this wanting to develop this platform to kind of do more. And I believe that that's sort of the beginning seed that led to Propeller. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, it was the very beginning, which was became this long winding road of how Propeller ended up starting. But it was, you know, feeling like when I'm in a band, I think you could see at a small level, just even like we were touring the US and Europe, but we were not a big band. We were just a very indie kind of band who had some really great opportunities. But when you're going from city to city, and especially country to country, like in Europe, you feel like you're this diplomat and you have this opportunity to, like, you're doing interviews, you're playing maybe sold out shows, and people want to meet you. And it's like, what, imagine if you were at the time for me, it was like U2 or something. Imagine if you're at that level, like how
Yeah.
much you could actually do. um, and so when I got to the point where I didn't really feel like I thought my band was gonna be my life. Like I thought that was my whole career and we were gonna go on and hopefully become this bigger group. And when I kind of felt like that wasn't going to happen, I thought, well, why don't I leave the band and I'll go pursue how I can help artists that already have that
Mm,
audience and platform do this better, and not have to get there myself, but just be sort of the like a cheerleader behind the work and get them, make it easy for them to do it. And the idea actually started for me in, at the time we were kind of in between like the Napster days, where it was all about, you got free downloads, and then everything became about combating illegal downloads, and it was pre Spotify, so there was not like a solution for it at the time. And I had an idea to create a platform that enabled, the music to be supported by advertising, but it was free. So like you could download
mm.
the songs, and you weren't trying to fight the downloads. You were going with it, but it was still, the artist could still get paid. And I wanted to build a whole platform around that and a whole record label. And I ended up meeting this company this was in 2008, and it was just sort of a chance meeting, but they had they had all the funding they could have needed. And their idea was really around how they can use media and celebrities and stuff to support causes.
Hmm.
And that was really like my long-term goals. Once, I felt like we had this opportunity to change the music industry, and then how we could then do that for other, like, bigger, more, I guess, noble purposes. And they asked me to come intern for them, and I had built my own site to do this. And I said, instead of watching an advertisement, how about you watch an awareness video? And we did it with this certain nonprofit that had a big campaign at the time. And so you got to watch a video about them, and then you got to download. And I did this for about like 1 month, and it outgrew that company and all their registered users and stuff. And they said, well, why don't we just make this part of this company, and you don't need to go find funding. We'll just do it all under our umbrella. And so that really was like what was the next step in that journey. And
Hmm.
allowed me to kind of start working with nonprofits and working with big artists, as well as we got to work with um, all kinds of people: Jack Johnson, Lincoln Park, Peter Gabriel, Blink-182, like a bunch of big artists at the time. And we also had a relationship with Huffington Post, and so I was a contributor to the
Hmm.
Huffington Post, and got to go around and interview artists and talk to them about causes that they cared about, and see if we could connect, on these things that we're talking about now. And 9 times out of 10, I found that artists really understood what I was saying. And I think so much of that is because of the same feelings I had as when I was in a band, of traveling and touring and meeting people and kind of feeling like you do have this opportunity to use it. And it's kind of like, why wouldn't you? That's what I think a lot of artists feel, is like, you can make it easy for me. Like, why wouldn't I say yes to some of these things that might raise millions of dollars, or, have some sort of impact on a bigger cause?
Yeah, and you have, with Propeller, raised millions upon millions of dollars for the various causes. And yeah, I mean, I just love that. Like, certainly, I think artists on that level, when they have the platform, but people in general, like, people want to help. Despite the world seeming like it's full of terrible people, most people want to help in whatever way they can. And if you can make it easy for them, even better. And I think you would agree. I feel like Propeller does that in a really great way. And so maybe just uh, tell those listening, like, what the approach is, how it works with artists and the fans and all of that.
Yeah, well, I think, when I was at that company, it was all about the downloads of the music, and then as Spotify came out, we all of a sudden realized that, like, downloads are not gonna have any value anymore, and so, um, giving away music was not something that people are gonna donate for when you can get it now on Spotify all under one roof, and so started thinking of other incentives to get fans of these artists motivated to give, and so a lot of that became around experiences, like opportunities to meet the artist or get concert
Mm,
tickets, or finding
mhm,
these other ways that are going to motivate fans to want to contribute to these causes and initially just get their attention. And so, um, and then the other part of it was that when I was running campaigns with that company, I wanted to raise money, but I also wanted to generate awareness. I wanted to be able to give updates. I wanted to get people to take other actions. It might be volunteering or whatnot. And so I was sort of like Frankensteining like SoundCloud and all these different platforms to try and create campaigns. And so that's really was the impetus for Propeller, was like, let's create a platform that can be versatile in what a campaign might mean. And so sometimes that might mean just raising money, sometimes it might mean volunteering, sometimes it might be signing petitions, or a combination of all of it. And so um, Propeller is really that. It's a platform that is incentivizing people to take action, and oftentimes done through big experiences that people can win. So you would sign a petition or make a donation, you're entered to win something. And then the more actions you're taking, you're earning points. Those points are used for either to get more entries, or if you have enough points, you
mm,
can just redeem them directly for different rewards that we have, which might, the things like concert tickets or gift cards or merchandise, or, anything really that we can add to motivate people to do this. And the idea is that, like, yes, people want to help, but you're scrolling through Instagram or TikTok and you're watching, stupid videos or political stuff or whatever your jam is. And it's like, yeah, you care about these things, but what actually is going to motivate you to go to the nonprofit's website and make a donation? It like happens very little. And so, I think especially with young people, you see like all this energy around these different issues, but everyone's just distracted. And they also just overwhelmed by all the noise that's out there. And so, where do you
totally.
begin? And so the philosophy behind it is that, you take a Chappelle Roan or something, that she cares about LGBTQ rights, and you give her fans like the opportunity to win a trip to meet her. And so they might see a video of her mentioning this on Instagram. They'll click it, and then they come there, and the way that they have the opportunity to do so is, again, either by donating or taking some sort of action. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of that simple in terms of like how it works or why it works. And then, all the challenges around it are really just figuring out how it's sustainable, and how it continues to grow, and getting the artists to say yes, because it is really easy for them. I think sometimes it's maybe a little too easy for them, but you're just getting through all the blood sucking vultures that are in the music industry. I say that with love, but it's the gatekeepers really that, like, you have to get around or get through, I guess,
Mhm,
to get to the artist to agree to do these things. And so we've always tried to really say, here's all the right reasons to work with Propeller, all the impact you're going to create, and goodwill in the world. But here's all the other reasons, like, this is good for you and your career, and you're getting all these other marketing benefits and PR, and
mhm.
engaging your fans, and just, for something that takes about 10 minutes of your time, it just becomes a, like, why wouldn't you do this? And if you do care about these causes, and similarly on the fan side, it's really easy. And so we're constantly trying to iterate and improve what we're doing. And then also, it varies so much depending on who might be in office, as the president at the time or something, in terms of what people are wanting to do. But I think one thing I'll say is that when I started doing this work in 2008, it was a lot harder to get people to say yes. And I think over the years, um, I think people have really opened up to, like, truly looking for outlets, and we're just now there as a one outlet of ways that they can do this, and it doesn't feels pretty normal in terms of a lot of the routines and activities that these artists do have, as far as it's seems like every artist, every brand, so forth has a cause. And in 2008, that was a lot more rare at the time.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that back in 2008. And I think it's also just worth pointing out where that, just from having talked to you previously, like, the idea for it may have started at a different company that was funded and all that, but when you start Propeller, it's very much self-funded. Like, you've been doing this on your own and building it since 2008, which is amazing in this climate, honestly. And that it's you've made it very easy, very, and visually appealing, interactive interface to make all of this happen. And that you're not just dealing with, big artists, the Chappelle Roans, the Lordes, you're open to working to, smaller indie bands, and, just allowing this mutual support of good and charities that people believe in to be spread on whatever level that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that authenticity is the not so secret sauce in what we do. And so when there's an artist that is truly authentically doing the work, the fans can really tell. And that's something that we really try and communicate with everybody. It's like I get it. We easily can get looked at as like a contest site or something, and that is so not what we're trying to be.
Mhm.
But people sometimes look at it that way as just a promotion or something. But we have artists that we've worked with, the Justin Biebers and stuff of the world, but we have artists that are, I don't know, 10% of the size of an artist like that, and can make as big of an impact just because they do it in such an authentic way where they really are, and their fans know that. I think there's just something that the fans can tell when it's, the social media person is writing the copy on the post or whatever, versus this is something really coming from the heart of the artist, and that they really do care about this. And it's like when they put the why first, it's like the
Mhm.
prize is like the bonus or the cherry on top, but the why, like why they care about this cause, why they felt compelled to do this at this time, that's what we really try and get at. And it's honestly hard. I mean, it's hard to get that far with a lot of the artists, but we're constantly trying to work and make that better, because they really can make a difference. And we try and work with artists of all sizes. It just we're limited with our bandwidth. But to your point, I mean, yeah, the company would like, I started it with um a very small amount of like friends and family money. And that was, just to be clear, like that was less than $100,000, which when you're building a technology platform, I did that by partnering with somebody that was a developer, and
Yeah.
like that
I mean, that's
was
like
the only way
pennies
we
in comparison. Yeah.
No, the only way we could get it done. And but I really wanted to build a business first. I think that there's something I've, since that time of the company in 2008, they got acquired, they don't exist anymore. And I saw so many other companies in this space come and go in a short amount of time. Even like there was a company that had $130 million in investment that ceased to exist in the US. And it's just hard. It's hard to create a business model in this space that still can be ethical and kind of works for everybody.
Mhm.
And I think if you have investors breathing down your neck trying to get a 10x return or something stupid, it's like it's not really what this space should be about. And I was trying to be very careful to not have investors that wanted just the money and profit aspect of it. And because we didn't have people breathing down their neck, we've been able to be patient. And because I had the right sort of team members and co-pilot and all that in this, that really were here for the right reasons, that were so much beyond money, we've stuck it out through a lot of like incredibly challenging situations,
Hmm.
and been able to find ways that this can be profitable and at the very least sustainable to allow it to grow and really be a force. And so Propeller, we did like a soft launch in the summer of 2015. So we're 10 years into it. And I really feel like we're kind of like have been inching our way to the starting line. And so I feel like
I know that feeling.
we're basically there, we're basically at the
Yeah.
starting line for this thing, which seems crazy. But I also, because I was in the band, I think everything feels like a band metaphor. And I think there are a lot of great bands that still exist today that didn't make it for the first 10 years of their life. And they're doing the laps around the country in the van and sleeping on floors and playing in people's basements and stuff. And I think that like it makes it real. You're
Mm-hmm.
not acting. You didn't just wake up one day and like a couple months later you got a record deal and you blew up on MTV or something at the time, like how it used to work. And um but you weren't like a real artist yet. You have to get your time on the road, and becomes authentic, and you actually lose your ego through the process. And I kind of feel that way as a company, like um it becomes more real all the time. We know the things that we don't want to do and things we do want to do, and what's going to be a success and what's not, just based off of all the history of doing thousands of these campaigns now.
Yeah. Well, and I love just the whole thread through the of the authenticity, whether it's where you're coming from with the company, whether it's and I totally second your statement about, fans can tell online about a band's posts, if it's authentic or not, or if it's someone at the label writing it, and how much better it is when it is authentic. It all contributes to the longevity of whatever you're doing, whether it's a band or a company. But I did want to you mentioned about needing to lose your ego, as you've been over the last 10 years, or I don't know if it's your ego, but what did you mean by that? And can you kind of give an example of how that was for you as you're developing this company?
Well, I think going back even before that's like the band days when I was
Mm,
18, just out of high school, and um, immediately out of high school, an opportunity to go on tour, and we were an opening band we were a rock band on a metal tour, but it was also a lot of shows around the country, and so very quickly, like we thought we were, amazing, and we were not.
golden gods,
Um,
golden gods.
but we had in Pennsylvania, we had people coming down to see us and meet us from New York and LA and whatever else. And we just thought, yeah, we're gonna be the next big thing. And if we had gotten a record deal like at that time, like in 18, and Alabama's 19 or so, I think we would have imploded. I think it would have been a disaster. And I think people like we would have thought we were like, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. We're that good. And instead we had to go kind of eat shit for a while on the road and have that life and play to nobody, and like just it's a learned process. And you like one of my I think this is a Ram Dass line. One of my favorite lines is, "You can't rip the skin off the snake." Like you couldn't force it to happen. It has to happen over time and kind of evolve, and learn a lot through the band days. And then at certain points in your career, you might think you're established in something as well, and your ego might flare up at times. And
Mm,
I think it's really important to stay humble. And I think sometimes you're just forced into that. Like you don't, it's not a conscious decision to be humble. You get humbled by the setbacks that just naturally come up, and when you're starting the company and all the things you don't know. I think people that have their own companies uh, quickly learn that like you start a company because you have an idea, might be something you're good at, you have experience in, and then when you're actually going through the process, you have to figure out, accounting and graphic design and like raising capital, all these different things that were never like why you got into it. And you have to really, it just becomes something you learn as you go. And I think that whole process is very humbling. And like, if you have an ego about
mhm.
it, I don't know. I just think I especially think that ego is misguided in the world of social impact. It's just like it's easy for people to get it. And I think a lot of people get into social impact because they want to eventually become a politician, or like it's a
Mm,
means to an
mhm.
end. I think that I don't think this is a secret that like doing what I do is really cool because you get to work with anybody and everybody. I can reach out to any artist I want and maybe get the opportunity to work with them. Versus if you work, if you're a manager, you have your clients and you intersect or interact with different teams and stuff. But um, you have your client base or your roster, and with what we're doing, it's like we can truly approach anybody. And so we've gotten to work with so many different teams in that regard.
Mm.
But I just like humbled all the time. And I think that, most business owners would say that, at any stage, there's stages. And as you go to the next stages, there's always going to be lessons and things you didn't know. And so remain open and remain humble throughout the process.
Yeah, and as I, having started Bright Antenna Records, totally agree with that, and there's always the illusion or hallucination of what you think it's gonna be versus what really happens, and that's where the humbling definitely happens. Um, but, I definitely wanna get to Portal, which is how we actually crossed paths, and that was a year and a half ago, 2 year. I think it was a year
Yeah,
and a half
it was a
roughly
little
ago.
over a year ago.
Yeah. And yeah, just obviously I know because I've already talked to you, but share what the inspiration for that was and what's Portal been up to.
Yeah, well, good question. And I think, Portal was really something that was between myself and Justin Boreta. Justin, for those that don't know, was in a electronic group called the Glitch Mob.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually met Justin when I was at that first company. I talked about we were doing a campaign around the Haiti earthquake, and they were looking for some sort of charitable way to do a release of a remix project. And we were doing this big Haiti initiative. And we just connected during that time and we became friends. And so we've done a lot of work over the years for different causes with the Glitch Mob. Um, I had been doing work with the Ram Dass Foundation, and I think Justin and I had a conversation about it. And then he ended up doing it's really amazing collaboration with the Ram Dass Foundation around. It was first one was called Imagine, but where Justin took this, and you obviously know about this stuff with these forests, and it's a similar vein, but where he took a Ram Dass, I don't know what you even call it, not really meditation, but well, I guess it's a meditation, and creating this beautiful sound journey sort of experience behind it. And we did that, and then we turned that into a campaign that ended up raising a bunch of money as well, where you also got the download, but you got to win this trip to go to the Ram Dass
Mm,
retreat on Maui and meet Ram Dass because he was still alive at the time. And then we did a similar project with Alan Watts, and Justin was always posting about like psychedelic news and stuff in his on Instagram, stories and stuff. And I think neither one of us thought of psychedelics as a cause. At least I didn't.
hmm,
And one day, I think it was just a light bulb where like, why are we not doing this work that we're doing with Peller and other causes for the psychedelic movement? And that kind of led us down this whole journey of like, well, what could this be? What's the mission? Where is there a hole in the space? And so we came up with Portal, kind of figured out the identity for it, the mission behind it. We brought on initial partners. Justin knew a lot of people in the space. I did not. And
hmm.
so we quickly, partnered with like Double Line Magazine and then Maps and Royal Cards Project and these different organizations in the space. And the idea was really and the mission of the Portal it's to destigmatize the responsible use of psychedelics. And we really want to educate people about the benefits and the risks and all that of using these compounds. And then because a lot of what we do with Propeller is advocacy related, is to advocate for accessibility. And so it was really just to do what we were doing with Propeller campaigns for the psychedelic space, but not to be our own organization. It was just a campaign that was on Propeller as
Mm.
sort of an umbrella for the space. And I think the more I started going to like the different conferences and meeting people in the space, the more I realized that there wasn't anyone doing this kind of work in the psychedelic space. And it just felt like an opportunity to help. And on the flip side of it as well, like, or another side of it was that I'd go to some of these conferences and a lot of like the after parties and events where like they would be at a bar and, people are sitting around drinking and there's like a DJ in the corner or something. And it just didn't feel like it
Didn't
matched
line
the
up.
level of, it didn't line up. The
Yeah.
excitement, the conscious aspect of it. And so, um, I think the other feeling around it was that Propeller is so far and wide. It's like we're like trying to reach as many people as we can all the time and get
Hmm.
as much volume in these campaigns as we can. And so Portal was like, take all of what I just said and like how you then put that into something where you're creating something that's educating people. You're leveraging like, the musicians and celebrity and culture to get people to pay attention to it and to get them to come in and take these actions and learn and donate to the different groups. And then on the events side, like how do we create events that are really conscious
Mm.
and did match the excitement of the psychedelic space. And it was about going like I really wanted to create something that would go deep with a small group of people and then like scale that. Like it wasn't just like let's have
Hmm.
this be everywhere and reach as many people as we can. It's like, can we create something that truly has value in people's lives and that they want to be a part of and feel like they're a part of something for doing it? And so we started doing Propeller campaigns where we partnered with different artists and festivals and giving away trips and getting people to take action for the way to win those trips. And then we started doing events in Denver. And so
Hmm.
we did our first event, which was incredibly challenging during psychedelic science in 2023, which East Forest played. But it was a mix of things where we had, these forests and other sound journeys, and then we had Beretta, and we had Bonobo was supposed to be the headliner, and a bunch of artists that was a bit more of like the dance sort of rave side of it.
Hmm.
And but then the first event we did beyond that was the one that you were at with East Forest
Yes.
in Denver, which was September of 2024. And we did a whole monthly series in Denver for a few months with East Forest. And we had Leslie Schultz from the Lumineers was a speaker
Hmm.
that night. And we did an event with Snow Raven. And then we did one with veterans and Upper Elk Hearts Project and some other partners, and then we did one with the Ram Dass Foundation, and Trevor Hall played. And so these were like 1 to 300 people. They were very intimate events, but the idea was to create something that was a way for the community to connect. Sort of
Yeah.
the template was like one part psychedelic education, or an interview or a talk about a certain topic within the psychedelic space, and then the back half of every event is meant to be a heart opening experience, which is an East Forest concert or some sort of
it was for sure.
some other type of musical experience typically, and always want people to have the ability to meet each other. And um we didn't do any more of those monthly events in 2025 because which is a whole other thing, but we did Bicycle Day again at Meow Wolf, where we take over all of Meow Wolf,
Yeah.
and a whole campaign around that. And then we did a whole um we had an 80-foot geodesic dome that we had for 9 days around the psychedelic science conference that was in June that Maps put on. And so we did 38
Which looks
events in
incredible,
those.
by the way. I would definitely recommend like going to Portal's Instagram and checking out that psychedelic science dome event they had, because I was definitely having some major FOMO when I saw that.
It was it was honestly one of the highlights of my life. Like it's and it sounds
Mm.
cheesy, but it was and something we hope to do a lot more of moving ahead. But I because of how intense the 2023 Portal event was during the conference, which was impacted greatly by a crazy storm with hail and all this
Oh,
stuff
that
that
weather was
happened.
insane. Yes.
I wanted to do something that was more interesting than a normal venue. And I was actually thinking about doing something outside at the botanical gardens out there, but I was had PTSD from all the weather that I'm like, we need to cover it. And somehow got led down this journey of doing it in the dome. And but when the conference is coming up, even when we were building this thing, I'm like, is this this might be stupid. It was so expensive to do it and so much work. And the team that did it, like Spot Lab that we worked with on all of our events, like they had never built a dome. So it was all new for all of us. And I just thought, end of the day, this might be like, no one might like this. But I think by the end of it, we all felt the payoff of just the response we got from it and how it felt to be a part of it and be there. And so I think it was sort of a proof of concept for a larger vision we hope to see happen still
Hmm.
to come.
I would hope you do more because I want to get to one selfishly. But, um, and being, so you're a couple years into Portal and trying to create this nonprofit in the psychedelic space. Um, just wondering, because, psychedelics, it's still, for us who are kind of more aware of it, it seems like it's everywhere, but it's still very in its infancy of getting more accepted. And, you know, the federal government is saying they're going to crack down on people smoking pot in national parks now. And so, you just don't know where things stand. But as someone creating a business, like, what have you learned about working in the psychedelic space? Like, if anyone else is even considering getting into that sort of realm, something they might want to be aware of.
'Cause same thing. Don't do it for money. Like, don't make that the first reason you're doing it, unless you want to go on the pharma side of it, which still, it's like you don't know when this might ever become legal on the federal level to have that investment be realized. Um, but I do want to specify too, like, because I didn't say this, like Propeller, our portal started as a campaign. Eventually, we did turn it into a nonprofit this year, so we are a
Right.
501(c)(3) organization. But I think, you know, a lot of people ask. I mean, we're fully centered around education, and not, we
Mm-hmm.
don't give anyone any medicine, and so um, I think that for what we do, a lot of the questions we get are like, well, you do this in Denver, but can you do this in other places? And what's the,
Right.
your limitations around it? And my answer is we can do it anywhere. We're not, there's nothing illegal about what we're doing. We're a federally, IRS recognized nonprofit. And we did get a lot of initial pushback from the IRS when we were filing around having to make sure that we're not promoting and telling people to do, federally illegal drugs. And so, that's a big part of it. I would say that going to the space in if you're creating a nonprofit or different type of company that is not, I mean, unless you want to, there's so many like gray market mushroom companies out there, and I don't really even have a comment on that. Um, Mhm. but I think find something in the space that is unique and not already
Mm,
covered by one of the
mm-hmm.
organizations, because it is a space where there's funding is incredibly challenging. There's a very limited amount of what are sort of the people that have been funding this space, and there's been a lot of setbacks, with MDMA and not passing through the
Right.
FDA last year and stuff, where everyone thought it was going to, and so I think once again, get into it for the right reasons, find an angle that is something you can, isn't being touched currently, and somewhere you can feel you can help. And I would also say if you're a nonprofit, try and create something that's not fully reliant on a big check. And that's hard,
Mm,
especially like if you need something to get off the ground and have that sort of initial seed money to do so. But I think a lot of the organizations that have gotten funding from the people in the States that have given them big checks, they tend to go need to get another check in a year or 2 years or whatever it is. And a lot of those funders are not wanting to just keep dumping money into something. And so I always look at like how you create something that's sustainable. And it's not easy, but like that should be the
no.
goal, is that you try and find ways to do this that don't rely on big checks constantly.
Yeah. And it comes back to what you were
Mm.
saying earlier about coming from a place of authenticity and passion. Because yeah, you're not gonna like make big money right out of the gate. And if that's your goal, it's probably gonna fail. Is there anything in 2026 that Portal has brewing that you can share with us, or is it still in its planning stages?
A little bit of both, but I think that what we've been working on, once we got through the events um, in June, it was my whole year was like consumed by portal events between Bicycle Day and the Dome. And there wasn't some like end of the rainbow. I mean, we made a lot of great relationships, but we didn't like get money dumped on us or anything like that. So we're still like never really had that big check. And so we're really focused on what I just said, like creating something that's going to be
Mm,
sustainable and grassroots supported. And so we're really focused on our membership. And so some of
mhm,
our membership is kind of intrinsically linked with our events. But when we were doing all the events, the digital side of the membership kind of fell by the wayside. And now that we're focused on getting the digital membership together, and all of that what comes from it, so people can be a member from anywhere in the world and feel that they get value out of this and they're part of something and they're helping advance the psychedelic space overall. And so we're really close to launching, relaunching our membership,
okay.
and that's really where our focus is today. Everyone's kind of chomping at the bit to do events again, but again, we haven't made any money off of our events. We've in fact lost money, and so like I can't keep doing that until we kind of
Right.
get our feet under us here a little bit more, and so I'm not sure yet. I think there's a high chance we launch sort of the initial version of this membership in the next month, and
Mhm,
then it'll just keep evolving from there. But it's truly unique because it combines what Propeller does with what Portal does, and so there's nothing
mm,
else like it in the space. It's going to be really impactful, but also very fun. Also have a lot of depth to it. It's combining all the education and advocacy and fun rewards and experiences and stuff. And so I'm really excited to get it off the ground and then start doing events again. And so there's a chance we'll do some events in 2026. But so much of it is just going to come down to like how far we get and how much resources we have to do so. And
Right.
we'll see what happens. But Portal's like Propeller's been my baby. Portal's more of my new baby, and
The second
it
child.
feels it feels full circle to all the things we talked about of how I got into this space to begin with, and what
Hmm.
the Ram Dass and Alan Muzz, all these people of like why I got into social impact, and so um, I'm very passionate about it. I also feel like when it comes to like just like the Ram Dass quote that you shared, I really feel at this time when people are so politically charged and we're so at odds with the other side of the aisle, whatever side you're on, that I really want to remind people to keep coming back and working on themselves through all of this. And that's what matters more than anything. It's like it's not what happens to you; it's how you deal with it. And I think that
Hmm.
I think that Portal speaks to that directly, and it's even broader to me than psychedelics. It just consciousness, and it's like how you
Mm.
get people to tune in that way and go deeper. And so I just think psychedelics are sort of a rocket ship for a lot of people into having that shift in perspective that you get to with meditation and stuff. It just takes a lot longer sometimes. And so it's why I really believe in the work we're doing at Portal and what's happening in the psychedelic space beyond us, and why I think it matters now potentially more than ever. AI is a whole
Yeah.
different topic, but I feel like as we enter into this
We got to
digital
have a
world,
whole
like
different podcast for that.
but as we become more artificial or whatever, it's I think that having that connection, that interconnection is so important. And so I hope to see Portal really grow and just, you
Hmm.
know, psychedelics get embraced, but with the right way, with intention and respect and responsibility surrounding it all.
Oh, well, I absolutely do too. And just one note is that like this actual episode might come out in a month or 6 weeks. So you might already be live with this next veneration of Portal. So anybody out there listening, definitely go check it out and see what experiences there are for you around this psychedelic space. And before we get to a last couple kind of speed questions, um, where can people find you or Portal or Propeller to learn more about it all?
Well, I think I'm pretty boring on socials, so I would say go to yeah. I think the Portal Instagram is great. It's You Are the Portal is the handle, and Propeller is propeller.la, both for our handle on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, as well as the website is propeller.la. So I recommend checking out those places. But feel free to add me on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever you might wherever you might want to follow me and get lots of
Whatever
dog
I see.
photos.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, okay. I have three last questions here. Um, quick ones. Number one, what is something we haven't yet touched on that you learned from a vision during a plant medicine journey?
Well, man, I don't know what to say what I haven't touched on, but I always think back to that one time when I was stung when I couldn't sleep because I was seeing like
Mm.
these crazy like sort of snakes like interwoven in between each other, and it represented like good and evil, and like all these things being kind of essentially the same. And there was
Mm.
so much more to it that again just felt like it was I know it's such a cliche, but it felt like a download that then I didn't make sense of till Ram Dass. Nowadays, what I do with a lot of my psychedelic journeys is a check-in, and I like to like see if my heart is still in the work that I'm doing, and why or why
Mm.
not. Like, where is it aligned? And both with the Propeller and Portal, and I think about Portal a lot when I'm on mushrooms, and I think like some things just feel silly, and you're worried about
Yeah.
certain aspects. It's like, and so how do you make it all as real as psychedelics are, or make you feel, and coming from that place and wanting to have it be something that truly is an offering to the world, not just like something I'm trying to sell you. So
Yeah.
I know there's more in there, Scott, but that's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, that's all right. And I love the whole checking in. during a journey about, what you're doing, even in the business world. I've done that myself, and it definitely kind of, yeah, it gets you back and motivated and excited. At least it has for me. I mean, I'm sure there's times people have said like, "Oh, I'm done," but it's such
Yeah.
a great use of it.
There's the
Oh,
people love to quote the Alan Watts when you get the message, hang up the phone. And I get it, I respect it, but I just feel that there's like a periodical check-in that really at least helps me.
mhm.
And so I did get the message a long time ago, but I haven't hung up the phone.
That's such a great tip. Number two, what is something you've lost during your life? And this could be something that makes you happy or sad.
Um I think, going back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of that was influence, the very first trip I was talking about that had me decide I wanted to go down this path where I really enjoy my life. And the work I was doing the whole time was influenced by my grandfather's passing. And
Mm,
so, he died when I was like in middle school, and it was pretty sudden, but he was someone, I'm not saying he didn't enjoy his life. I think he got to do all kinds of things, but he was someone that worked really hard, and then he retired and made a bunch of money after he passed, and then he died like 5 years after that. And so that
right. You
was the
couldn't
trigger
enjoy
for
it.
me. That was
Mm,
a trigger for me to say, like, I want to have that my whole life and not just work towards, for something at the end, because you think you're working and, saving up, and or you're gonna have all this pot of gold's gonna be there when you retire, hopefully. And then you start living, it's like you might not have your health, you might not live, like you just don't ever know. And so like don't have any regrets and enjoy your path the whole time.
mm, I love that. Yeah. Such wise advice. Difficult to pull off, but if it's to keep on those stones, on those steps in that direction, you'll just enjoy life more, I think. Yeah. Number three, what are you loving right now?
I'm loving Propeller right now, which that sounds, I mean, I I gotta say that like I got so obsessed with Portal that a lot of things with Propeller kind of fell by the wayside. And I wasn't honestly sure if my heart was in it in the same way that it,
Mm,
it used to be. And once I got through psychedelic science this year, one of my employees left, and it kind of put me in a spot where the initial reaction was like I was devastated, and then shortly after, I got really excited because it kind of put me back in the driver's seat where I was letting this person kind of steer a lot of things, and it put me in a spot where I could reconnect again, seeing like what still felt aligned and what didn't, and how it can or should evolve. And so, and since then, I feel like Propeller's really like having a moment and growing, and I feel like we're at this
mm,
impetus that's going to be our impasse that's going to be like this major next stage for the company. And so, I'm really loving that. As we mentioned, I'm currently in Nosara in Costa Rica, and spending six. I live in Nashville, but we're spending my wife and I 6 months away from there. And from here, we're going to Canada, and then after that, we don't know where we're going. And so, I'm loving the complete sort of blank slate, um,
loving the mystery of it.
wide open canvas of where
Ah,
we ultimately can go.
oh, I love that. Amazing. Well, this has been a great conversation, and I definitely encourage anyone out there who's interested in helping spread psychedelic advocacy to check out Portal. And if you have artists that you love, they're probably on Propeller, and you can support causes that they believe in there too. So, highly recommend checking both of those out. And, Brandon, I'm definitely going to continue to keep an eye on what you're up to, because you have a lot of cool stuff happening, period. Um, Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Scott. I really appreciate it, and it's great to see you and catch up.
Likewise, we'll talk again soon. And a big thanks to all of you out there who chose to spend your time listening to this episode. I really want to grow this community together. You can help in a couple small, quick ways to do that. You can click that follow button, you can leave a comment down below, and most importantly, if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or friends or family members who you think might also want to hear it. Together, hopefully, we can make this world just a little better place.